What is unconditional love? Have you ever thought about that question? It is the experience of being loved simply for existing, without having to do anything. Today, I would like to share with you my story: dramatic changes in my life, abandoned by my birth parents and raised as an adopted child. My name is Carol, and I am 32 years old. I was born with a weak body and developed epilepsy at a young age. Because of this, I was a child who required a lot of attention. My sister Joyce, who is 2 years older than me, has a beautiful face with fair skin, big eyes, and a prominent nose. Our parents had hoped that if they had daughters, one would become a TV announcer for a major TV network, and Joyce was the daughter who fulfilled those expectations. On the other hand, ordinary-faced me was a disappointment to them. Even as a child, I noticed the difference in how my parents treated us sisters. Due to my epileptic seizures, I only attended kindergarten during my final year. During that time, I watched enviously as my mother tied Joyce's hair and dressed her in cute clothes. While Joyce attended kindergarten, I spent my days alone at home, playing with dolls or drawing. Even though my mother was a stay-at-home mom and was always home, I have no memory of her playing with me. Perhaps feeling sorry for me, Joyce said, "Carol, this is a lucky leaf. It will stop your seizures and make you feel better. Look, Carol, see? It's like a princess," she said, giving me a 4-leaf clover and a crown made of white clover flowers. Believing in her words, I sometimes secretly searched the nearby vacant lot for 4-leaf clovers. One day, a large truck arrived, delivering a piano to Joyce's room. Fascinated by the sight of a piano for the first time, I watched Joyce play it with great interest. "Carol, do you want to try playing it?" she asked. But as I reached out to touch the keys, my mother scolded me, "Stop bothering your sister." That piano was hers. Her face was scarier than any demon. When I started elementary school, Joyce was busy with piano, French lessons, ballet, and swimming. Preoccupied with her activities, my mother assigned me household chores. "Since you're always home, you should help out a little," she said. I began doing cleaning, laundry, and dishwashing, and by 3rd grade, I was preparing meals for the family. On cold winter days, I was told, "Hot water costs money, so use cold water," and I vividly remember blowing warm breaths onto my chilblained hands. Joyce, who was beautiful and excelled academically, always scored perfect marks on tests. "Joyce, you did great." "Your sister is amazing," my parents would say as they patted her head. Hoping to be praised myself, I said, "Mom, I scored 102. Smiling, I showed her my test paper. But she replied, "Carol, stop that smug grin. I told you, copying your sister is pointless." Ha! I was shocked, as I didn't expect to be criticized for my smile or to be compared to Joyce even after scoring 100 points. After that, I stopped showing my test papers or forcing myself to smile. There is one unforgettable moment. As the elementary school graduation ceremony approached, Joyce was away at a skating lesson organized by her school. "Carol, we're going to a restaurant today," my father suddenly announced, surprising me. This was unexpected, since they had never taken me out to eat before. Feeling more puzzled than happy, I followed them to the restaurant, where my aunt and uncle were waiting. I thought to myself, what is going on? "Carol, you can eat whatever you like today," they told me. Still confused, I said, "Well, then, I'd like the kids' meal, please." My parents looked at me in slight surprise. "Are you sure a kids' meal is fine?" they asked. For me, the kids' meal was something I had longed for, tasted delicious, and felt comforting at that moment. Then, my father spoke to me with a serious expression. "Carol, actually, Joyce will be attending a school in the city starting next month. Your mother and I will be going with her." Ha! I couldn't hide my shock at the sudden announcement. When I fell silent, my mother continued, "Carol, we truly wish we could take you with us, but because of your epilepsy, your aunt is a nurse and has agreed to take care of you. Since your aunt and uncle don't have children, they've decided to adopt you and raise you as their own. Your uncle owns several companies." so you'll be able to live without any worries. This is what's best for you, Carol." It felt as though my heart was shattered in an instant. Afterward, my aunt spoke to me gently. "Carol, would you mind living with us?" I couldn't find the words to respond. It wasn't that I disliked my aunt and uncle. They were always worried about me because of my illness. Unlike my parents or Joyce, they genuinely cared for me. They looked after me whenever my family wasn't around and made me feel cherished. As I hesitated, my mother added what sounded like advice. "Carol, I know you love the piano. Even though you tried to keep it a secret, I know your aunt has been teaching you to play. So why don't you become a part of your aunt's family and continue playing the piano?" With those words, refusing was not an option. I wasn't being abandoned. Starting a new life at my aunt's house was meant to be a happy beginning for me. I nodded quietly. Raised by my aunt and uncle, I truly experienced the comfortable life my mother had described. "Why don't you take formal piano lessons?" my aunt suggested, and soon I started regular piano training. They carefully managed my diet and exercise to improve my health, and by the time I graduated middle school, my epileptic seizures had subsided. I was finally able to live a normal life. When I was accepted into the state's top high school, my aunt and uncle shed tears of joy. Not a day goes by that I don't think about my family, but I remind myself that seeing my aunt and uncle happy is my happiness too. After graduating high school, I was considering finding a job, but my aunt said, "You've been such a good girl all your life. Do something for yourself this time," and supported my decision to attend a music university. When university life began, she kept in touch, calling me every day and occasionally visiting me to make sure I was doing well living on my own. One day in my 4th year at university, something unexpected happened. "Carol, how have you been?" The voice on the other end of the phone was my sister's. It was the first time I had heard her voice in 10 years. Although I should have felt happy, I replied with a plain, "Oh, hi. How have you been, Joyce?" The 10-year gap had created an emotional distance that I couldn't immediately bridge. Joyce had asked my aunt for my phone number and decided to call me. "I heard you won a piano competition." Aunt told me about it. "Congratulations." She was referring to a piano competition held in the state. "Yeah, thanks. But it wasn't a very big competition," I said modestly. While the competition didn't make national headlines, it had been featured prominently in the local newspaper. "Even so, that's amazing. Being first place in any competition is something to be proud of," Joyce said encouragingly. Her words reminded me of the time when she was the only one in the family who praised me for scoring 100 on a test. As I reflected on that memory, Joyce's voice suddenly softened, and she asked me an unexpected question. "Hey, Carol, do you hate me?" "What?" I was stunned and unable to immediately respond. "What? No, of course not. I admit it was lonely not hearing from you for 10 years, but our aunt helped me recover from my illness. I don't resent you at all." "What?" This time, it was Joyce who sounded shocked. She confessed that she hadn't known I had been adopted by our aunt and uncle. The revelation left her deeply shaken. Then, she shared with me a truth she had just uncovered. I always believed that I wasn't abandoned, but rather that my parents entrusted me to my aunt and uncle to heal my illness and lead a happy life. The 10 years I spent convincing myself of this were now unraveling before my eyes. Hearing my sister's story, I was at a loss for words. "Carol, I'm so sorry. I truly thought you knew everything." "Dad and Mom told me they had shared the whole truth with you," Joyce said apologetically. "It's fine. This isn't your fault, Joyce. The real problem is those two." At that moment, my ambiguous feelings toward my parents transformed into outright resentment. "They're struggling financially now, so they'll probably try to reach out to you." "Be careful," Joyce warned. "Thank you." A month later, I returned to my aunt and uncle's home. The doorbell rang. "Carol, you have visitors," my aunt called out. Entering the living room together, I saw my parents standing there. It had been 10 years since I last saw them. They stared at me, astonished by how much I had changed. "Is this really Carol?" The one who had such a plain face, they muttered in disbelief. It's not uncommon for people to undergo remarkable transformations from their awkward teenage years to adulthood, becoming more polished and refined. I guess I was one of those cases. Though not a stunning beauty, I had reached my utmost potential. "Have you been well?" my mother asked. Internally, I felt anything but cordial, thinking, "Just leave already," but outwardly, I smiled and replied, "Yes, I have. How about Joyce?" Well, Joyce. Despite all the investment we made in her education, she couldn't keep up at her urban school. She ended up graduating from a mediocre university and now works at some no-name company. She lives alone now, but she's managing somehow, my mother said with a bitter tone. Her words dripped with sarcasm. "So, what about you two? How are you doing? What's your work and living situation?" I asked, steering the conversation. "Oh, well, we've grown tired of city life. We're planning to start a new business here, and we'll be staying in a nearby apartment for the time being," my father said vaguely. The story felt suspiciously incomplete. From what Joyce told me, my father had left his job a decade ago, joined a company through a connection, and was forced to return to his hometown after the company went under just a month ago. "Anyway, why don't we have a family meal together?" "It's on me, so order whatever you like," my father suggested. "A family meal? After all this time?" I thought incredulously. "That sounds wonderful. You three should enjoy yourselves," my aunt said, diffusing the tension. "In that case, how about an oyster bar?" I suggested with a smile. We went to the specified oyster bar for dinner. "Order anything you'd like," my father repeated. I remembered hearing similar words 10 years ago. "Then, I'd like one of the deluxe oyster sets, please," I said. Of course the waiter responded. "Oh, and could I get 2 grilled lobsters to go?" I added. "Certainly." At that moment, my father, squinting at the menu through his reading glasses, let out a startled, "What?" The oysters I ordered were the priciest item on the menu, at $120, as were the lobsters. "Was that too bold of me?" I asked lightly. My father quickly responded, "No, not at all. But who are the 2 extra lobsters for?" "They're for Aunt and Uncle. It wouldn't feel right to indulge by myself, and since you said I could order anything, I thought I'd take you up on your offer," I replied. "Ah, yes, of course, that's fine. Haha," my father laughed nervously, glancing into his wallet and whispering something to my mother. "I'm not that hungry," my mother finally said. "I'll just have a salad and soup. That should be enough, right?" she proposed, turning to my father. "Yes, that'll do," he agreed, clearly trying to keep costs down. My parents chose the most affordable option on the menu: soup and salad. "By the way, we have something important to discuss," my mother began. "With your first place win at the competition and your looks, I'm sure you're getting attention from many places. Have you already found a sponsor?" As expected, the conversation turned in this direction. "Well, actually." "Yes," I replied, feigning hesitation. "If you need a manager, I can do it. It was so hard being apart for the last 10 years, but we can be together again." Just like before, my mother said with an air of confidence. I couldn't believe she had the audacity to say that. To steer the conversation away, I said lightly, "Thank you for the meal today. By the way, are you free next Tuesday evening? I'd like you to come hear my piano performance." "I wouldn't miss it," my mother exclaimed. "Then let's meet here at this restaurant at 5 p.m., I said, handing them the restaurant's business card. The day of the performance came. "Oh, so you're here too?" My parents, upon arriving at the restaurant, were visibly surprised to see my aunt and uncle there as well. "Today, I wanted to celebrate a special anniversary, so I reserved this place and invited Aunt and Uncle too," I explained. It was the same date as 10 years ago, when my parents brought me to a restaurant for a meal before leaving me in my aunt and uncle's care. The original restaurant no longer existed. In its place stood an elegant French restaurant owned by a friend of my uncle. An anniversary? But it's not anyone's birthday, is it? My mother asked, puzzled. Exactly, I replied, noticing they had completely forgotten the significance of the day. Don't you remember? 10 years ago we had a meal together, and you told me to be happy as part of Aunt and Uncle's family. Oh, right. My memory's not what it used to be. I completely forgot, my mother said dismissively. Forgot? To them, it was a trivial moment, easily dismissed. Since there's some time before the meal, why don't I play a few pieces on the piano for you? I suggested while walking toward the piano. Dad, Mom, I'll play with all my heart, so please listen closely, I said before performing a selection of famous classical pieces. My parents listened, dramatically shedding tears as they pretended to be moved. Carol, thank you so much. That was beautiful, my mother said. Yes, truly moving, my father added, maintaining the act. Shortly after, I addressed the staff. It's about time. Could you begin preparing the meal? What kind of dishes will we have? My mother asked, her tone filled with anticipation. This place looks fancy. I'm excited to see what's on the menu, my father added, quickly wiping away his tears. At that moment, the doors opened and a couple entered the restaurant. Over here, Joyce, I called out, waving toward the entrance. My parents turned, shocked. Why is Joyce here? And who's that man with her? They asked, their confusion evident. Today, we're here to celebrate Joyce's marriage and the start of a new chapter in our family, I announced boldly. What? Joyce got married? They asked, their faces frozen in disbelief. It was clear they had no idea. In fact, Joyce had reached out to me after 10 years precisely to share this important news. Seeing their bewildered faces, I smiled warmly and said, Well, I think it's time for you two to leave. What they exclaimed, stunned. They stared at me in utter disbelief. Do you understand the meaning of the pieces I played earlier? They represented a decision to say goodbye. What? It seems you still don't understand. What I'm saying is that, as of today, our relationship is over. I explained to them politely but with a hint of sarcasm. What's this? How dare you speak to your parents like that? Stop joking around for once. My parents, trembling with anger, raised their voices in protest. You're the ones who are joking, Joyce countered firmly. She pressed even harder with conviction. Do you really not remember what you did in the past? 10 years ago, when Carol was still sick, who decided her medical expenses were too much and pushed her care onto Aunt, and who forced Aunt to pay $10,000 for a second-hand piano worth only $2,000. Now, just because Carol won a competition, you think you can be her manager? Parents like that are what people call toxic parents. If you understand, I suggest you leave this place immediately. Joyce stood her ground like a passionate detective confronting a criminal in a TV drama. After this heated exchange, my usually calm and kind aunt finally spoke up. Everyone, listen carefully. Now is the time to make things clear. Your selfish and insensitive behavior, treating your daughters as if they were your possessions, disgusts me to my core. From now on, stay out of our lives, including Joyce's, she declared, her voice filled with an anger I had never seen before. It was the first time I had witnessed my gentle aunt express such fury. Then, my uncle stepped in, speaking even more firmly. You two have no qualifications to call yourselves parents, so leave this place now. In that moment, I felt the depth of the bond between my aunt, uncle, and us, recognizing us as their children. Cornered, my parents had no escape. What would they do now? The first to raise his hand was my father. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please forgive me, he said, breaking into tears. I expected my mother to follow with an apology, but her response was entirely unexpected. Pathetic. A grown man crying and apologizing? That's why you'll always be a failure. You idiot husband, she snapped, sharply criticizing him. What? A failure? That's because you're a woman who brings nothing but trouble. "It's your fault I'm in this situation," my father shouted back. "What are you saying?" "Trouble." "How dare you," my mother gasped, throwing the words back at him. This exchange ignited an explosive argument between them, one so heated it looked like they might never reconcile. The rest of us could only watch in bewilderment. "Excuse me," a staff member from the restaurant interrupted politely. "Shall we proceed with serving the meal, or would you prefer we call the police given the circumstances?" At once, my parents united in their response. "There's absolutely no need to call the police," they said resolutely, before quickly leaving without a word. "Phew, what an impromptu performance we just witnessed," someone joked, prompting a mix of laughter and relief among us. "Let's make sure we never end up like that," Joyce and her husband said with a smile, sealing their promise to each other. "Now, shall we toast to a new chapter in our lives?" someone suggested. With a unanimous cheer, we raised our glasses, celebrating as though we had won a great victory. Later, my parents' lives unfolded differently. Despite often blaming their misfortunes on their daughter's immaturity, it became clear that their own actions were the root cause of many issues. Eventually, they got divorced. My father now struggles alone, working tirelessly to make ends meet, while my mother moves from one part-time job to another at tourist spots, unable to secure stable housing. As for us, our story of celebrating a new chapter continues. Joyce, thank you for watching over me and supporting me from afar all these years. And congratulations on your marriage, I said, dedicating a special wedding song to her. Then I turned to my aunt and uncle. To my true dad and mom, thank you for raising me with unwavering love and care. I hope we can continue to walk together through life, I said as I played a melody full of gratitude on the piano. It was the first time I expressed these long-held feelings aloud. Carol, we're the ones who are grateful, my uncle said warmly. Thank you for being our daughter, my aunt added, tears in her eyes. What was once a painful memory had transformed into a day of joy and celebration for our new family. 6 years after that day, I married Cliff, my high school sweetheart. We've been blessed with 2 lovely daughters and now live together in a duplex, supporting each other as a family. Though I could have pursued bigger dreams after graduating from Music University, for me, being with my family and filling our home with smiles has always been my greatest dream.